Okay, we are starting off with Wavetable as our first synth. And we're gonna look at the basics of starting your lead. Okay, so I like to work in this view very much because, you know, we struggle with music sometimes writing because we are so linear minded. And if you imagine you standing in front of a sound system dancing, and you're not thinking A to B, you know, A in the beginning, B to the end, or what's coming next. You're just looking at a circular mandala of sound that's evolving and changing. And the thing is, when you get into production, you get stuck in thinking linearly, you know, thinking it's your intro, you do your breakdown here, and da 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 da. And then you get a bit lost sometimes with actually just feeling the music. And it's a classic thing I find with, you know, students when they having writer's block. It's because they focusing too much on the, you know, the analytical thinking of I've got to get this section done to there and then that. Or so that's why I suggest always working on this view as much as you can when you're making sounds and just jamming, to avoid getting too in the mind. So this is more for being creative. And then regarding this, okay, people love to add the leads and kick and bass first. This is normal because we're all bass junkies and we love leads. That's the biggest thing you remember from a track. So we tend to make that first. This is alright and all, but it's actually better if you look at making your closest sounds, which is not your leads, it's your kick and bass. It's got no reverb on your kick, for example. So that's your closest sound. So you start with your kick and bass, then you make some percussion. This is what works for me. I always used to make kick and leads first, but I've just tried to resist it and look at making the leads last. If I can, it really works well. So first of all, since the lead is something that's leading you along the track, you need something there before. You can't just lead from an empty space with a lead. You could do that, but it's a bit like, you know, classical ravey, you know. So you would make a basic track first. Like I said, kick, bass and percussion, some atmos and some effects. Okay, the leads there I've muted. It's all wavetables. I'm going to try to recreate some of the sounds now. I'm just going to give you a little check in on the track, kick and bass, and percussion, some atmos, and effects. So the track starts very basic. Why it's good to start with a bit of a track first rather than just the leads is because it really makes you focus on the storytelling first with the bare minimals, and also by making the closest things to you the kick and bass, which is the first fundamental, the louder sound, the kick. You can go ahead and make percussion. Again, it's also very close up. And then after that, atmos. That's what I find works well, because now you're making the depth available for the track. So closest to further sounds, effects as well. And leads a little bit later, as late as you can. So because now you got your space set up, you know, your depth. So I've made a bit of a track here because you can't just jam leads over a short section. I'm trying to avoid working in small loops. So that's why I find it's much better to make a bit of a section, percussion, kick and bass section, some Atmos sounds, very simple, just for the start to start putting ideas down. Because if you're going to start recording your synths, you might as well play it, you know, and get out of the small loop view. Okay. Okay, so since we've got the track here now, let's start with some sounds so we could actually just have something to play or to make a lead along to for now. Okay, so for the leads, we're going to use Wavetable for the first one. I will make a brand new Wavetable here next to this one that I've chosen that I like. Okay, I've got some MIDI notes here already from my other leads. This is basic MIDI notes. We're playing them now. We got this on. Okay, so let's check out some of the sounds here. Collection, we change the sound. Okay, so we got a sound. We want to have a bit of a FME sound. So it's very boring at the moment. We can select all of these and make it maybe a bit down. Okay, let's see. We want to go for some FM sound. Something crunchy. Okay, you notice that the notes here aren't in D sharp. I put them in A sharp. A lot of the trance music and stuff, people make their leads in the same key exactly as the kick and bass. A lot of psytrance is like that. Sometimes people don't really know chord progression or scared to veer out of the keys. But I would definitely recommend, you know, playing a different key lead over your track rather than sticking to the same key all the time. And also variation, you know, variation of notes. Ideally, you just play it, but most of us can't play keyboard. So there's different ways to get conversation with the leads, because we make different versions of a similar lead, similar pattern, and then we can play between those different patterns. That's how I like to do it. So you can see here's about 6 different wavetables of leads I made, which I'm going to try and replicate now for you. So yeah. Okay. So let's first of all get an envelope up on that filter. Get it done. And get that it's not much of a happening sound. Must be 7. Yeah, we were too low in pitch. Okay, so okay, it's a bit better. So one essential thing is your sends. Sends are great because you don't affect the actual volume of the original sound. You're just adding the effect to it. And you can get coherence in your track by having the same effects or same sends, you know, going to all your leads, like I've done here. So for leads, I would say it's essential to have a send, because you don't want any of the sound to be taken away. It has to be the loudest sound in the track, the most prominent. So that's why a send works great. And a send is very important because the reverb really helps you shape the lead. It needs to be something quite large, but not with a long tail, because you don't want to cause mud, but it needs to be present. So you get quite a big amount of reverb you send to your send. So let's check it out. Let's switch this off and check what we got. This is a lead I've made earlier, and that's going to a nice delay and a nice reverb. I find this convolution reverb really good. Ableton's one's great, but if you tweak the decay amount in Ableton, it pauses it keeps the same setting, or turns off the convolution reverb while you're tweaking it. You can't hear yourself tweaking it because it's creating a different image for the convolution file. It's rendering it live, whereas this one seems to not do that. So it's nice to tweak your sounds with this reverb. I just like the sound of it, and I like convolutions in general. They give me a better reverb sound to most of the plugins I've tried, especially for leads and percussion. Some other sort of digital reverbs, I mean, this is also digital technically, but ones that are just pure VSTs, not using sampling, are sometimes great for atmospheres, for really big, crazy sounds, you know. So I'd recommend Outer Spaces or Reverb from Fab Filters, also good. I've tried that before for big spaces, but this is now for leads. So I find Convology really good, and also I do use the Ableton reverb a lot. I mean, it's usually my go-to, but for this time I'm not going to use it. Okay, so these are just some simple MIDI notes I made earlier, very basic. There's many ways to do MIDI notes. I'm going to show a few techniques to you. This is just the first notes I put down, and they actually sounded right. And A sharp and D sharp go well together sometimes. So it's not really even much of a lead. You can just see the stabs and a little bit of a variation. So first of all, what I want to do is link my MIDI controller with this, so I can hear what I'm doing. So I've got this going. I'm gonna just keep tweaking the sound. Add another oscillator. Let's change it a bit to basics, Galactica. So another rule that I like to make for my students is, when you're making your lead, make it, first start tweaking it once you've done some modulation. Do everything with modulation first before you shape it, because you can't really tell the sound of something, especially in this style, unless it's being modulated through the filters, some nice resonance on there. So first of all, let's change the filter to something with a bit of drive. That looks good. Check the volume. Okay, so what I would do, just get the volume basic compared to the kick. Let's first of all put the EQ on there. Essential. Otherwise it's going to clash. So let's go for a sharp cut because it's quite a loud sound. You can go quite low. Nice thing about having a bass and kick like this, it's quite a bit of click on the bass, but not lots of mid, high mid synth sounds. High mid sub, but not gritty synth. So we can have our synths quite low. Okay, you can find a sweet spot just now. So first of all, like I said, modulation first. So let's make a little bit of a section, as long as we want to, at least. And we've got this going now. So let's just do some movement with this thing. Going now, we can basically, with a moving synth, it's easier to tweak it, because otherwise you're just tweaking, you don't even know what you're tweaking, you're just tweaking into the distance. So first of all, let's put this one on FM, and also the first one on FM. Increase the volume of this one. Maybe let's change semitone as well. Sounds good. Seem to be both at the same level. Let me do some detuning. That's quite nice. Let's go up with the amounts. Oh, yeah. Some nice sounds there. So that's just with the built-in Wavetable sounds with a synth. So first a bit of automation. Let's just check out this envelope. So you're getting a quite classic sort of Xenon lead happening there. Anyway, that's just one setting. There's quite a lot more you can do to it. So we could try and increase the amount of the FM on the second one. So let's get some kick and bass. Okay, well that sounds pretty good. Let's check out the oscillator. See what we can do there. Okay, well the amount is very little here. see how we sound if you shift the keys up a bit. Sometimes nice to add the sub into this. Basically, you just tweak these parameters. They're both on FM. And how to get the sound sounding a bit more full. It's got a really good panning function here. Phase sync. So as you can see, I've made a few different versions now of the same synth that we were tweaking. And as we went through Wavetable, you noticed many different textures coming about in the last while. So each different texture that I liked, I would make a duplicate of the track. And then at the end I have quite a few different leads. and I generally just copy the same automation. So what I did now, once I find a nice sound, I make a jam with it over the track. And by a jam, I mean I record with my MIDI controller the cutoff for a certain amount of time, for say 2 minutes, or as long as I'm able to. And that's why it's good to make a bit of a track before, so you have something to play to. Otherwise, it's just you making short loops. So these are very basic notes, but once I've got some movement going and a bit of a story going just through the filter, using the minimal first, I can then go and edit notes, use the bits I like, and then make different versions of the same synth, different textures, so I have a few different leads to interact with and change notes as I go along. So this is what I did with this lead. Okay, so basically I'm going to use my 0 number on my keyboard, and I'm going to mute this lead on and off. This is the automation we've recorded. Obviously I didn't sit with you guys all the way and record everything, so I just did it, and there you see it's just a cutoff filter, that's all. So as this plays, I'm going to mute it to create a bit of pattern variation and record that and see what we come up with. Okay, so that wasn't the best job really, but it gives you an idea how you can sort of create ideas and where to put notes and stuff just by using 0 and muting it on and off and playing with the delay. So it's a bit rough, to be honest. I had some better takes, but I'm not going to keep trying to perfect it. You know, it's the recording ghost. When you record yourself and you know people are going to watch, then your jamming is a little bit less good. That's why it's good to practice. So for live, you don't feel like that. Okay, so maybe let's check it again. Do a little loop here. I try not to work in loops as much as possible because your brain doesn't really, it sounds nice there, but then it's comparing this end bit to that part musically in your mind, so you're not really getting the flow, proper flow. So obviously now, because I've got automation there already, it's just from jamming it, rather than getting too lost in loops, I can just start. Or, which I haven't even done at all, I could introduce some long notes. You know, start playing with the notes. So it's quite quickly you can actually start sculpting just sort of key lead points, you know, in the track. send a bit of reverb to it, you know, if you've got a large reverb or something. That's maybe a bit extreme, you know. You just drag the automation down. It's a bit high, so I can drag that down a little bit. So after a bit of tweaking, I'll show you what we've got. Okay, so what I've done is duplicate the first automation I've done here, because I like it, it's super subtle. Copy it exactly across. This first reverb hit, I'll show you which one. So that reverb hit goes to the send, automated. You see there? I just thought it's a bit intense for the beginning of the track, because the track sort of starts, well, it's not the beginning, but beginning of the section. I might use this 2 minutes in, make a more simple version before, but I'm just trying to get some leads going down and some ideas. So I'm going to make it a bit more down the filter frequency. Just check out how that sounds. Maybe even lower. Move them all down. Yeah, that's better. Okay, let's check that out. And then the second one, which I've duplicated, is going to be higher. So what I do is when I play it, I notice some notes that sound wrong, or like that's on the kick. Sometimes it's on the kick, it's okay if it's the right filter frequency. So I just edit as I go, and also this I notice is a bit too much. Don't know what's going on with that. So I can tame that a bit. It's quite cool. Some cool ideas coming from that. I was thinking I could maybe make this a bit lower. Kind of like a roll-off effect. Okay, so for this section, let's just check in what we've learned, the key points. Modulate parameters before tweaking texture. So like I said, it's good to make it move before to breathe life into it, so you really get to edit and tweak its full range. Okay, try different notes to root notes, getting different results. A lot of the electronic music is always the same leads in the root note. Try experiment, you get really nice combinations, sevenths and so. Before you actually worry about editing the MIDI notes and the pattern, get your synth to talk first. Like I said, same as the automation, get the filter talking first. That will give you immediately a theme. and because you're trying to write story and content with no script here, so you're using something like a lead to shape and create emphasis. Very subtly though, like we are here with a low pass filter. Obviously opening the filter up more with the right types of setting on Wavetable will result in more crunchy, bigger leads. But for now we're just making stuff quite subtly. So once the modulation is moving nicely, you start tweaking your synth. You start like, you know, like I've shown you. We play with all the parameters, go through all of them, scan through the different wavetables. Remember, you can load wavetables from other synths in there, from your favorite hardware. It's also something I do sometimes. Really nice trick. If you don't have the money for a virus or so, or any kind of hardware, you can just put the waveform into here and you'll have something close as you can get. Okay, so play with the pitch and semitones in the actual wavetable of the different oscillators, swap between them. Duplicate the tracks that you like. So remember, if you find a really good sound, you just duplicate it so you can use it in your layers. And the goal is to have a few leads of tracks, different tracks with different textures and tones, so you could make editing fun and easy and choose between different ones with them all doing similar modulation.